Thank you guys for coming. To be in one of the last sessions on the last days shows real leadership, and we appreciate your being here to talk about a really cool and exciting subject. So I'm John Ross, the CEO of IGA. Tom?
I'm Tom Vanier. I manage our private brand program for IGA. I've been with them for about seven months now. My background is a little bit, I've been in private label for almost 25, 30 years, and I've been in the grocery business forever. So anyway, I worked for a Damon Worldwide, which is a brokerage firm. We worked more on the chain side of the business, work with major retailers within American Stores, Kroger, and whatnot. So I'm happy to be here with John and the group. It's an exciting time. It's a lot of fun working with the independent retailers, and they're very entrepreneurial, and we're just looking to be able to help them.
So I don't know how the show, I hope the show's been profitable for everyone and you've enjoyed it. Let me begin by saying we have nothing to sell. There is no pitch, there's no QR code at the end of this, there's no one going to be standing at the door with a PO. We are here to educate. So what we thought we would do in this session is talk about the trends that we're seeing in private label, IGA with 2,200 stores in the United States and over 7,000 internationally, but we'll talk domestic today. We thought we would share some numbers with you about trends. Some of this you may know, some you may not. And then we'll make some observations about those trends and how they're changing the shopper's behavior, and we'll talk about shopper behavior in this meeting. And then we're going to come up with a series of very specific actions that we think that any retailer could take inside their store in order to prove their private label percentage. Those actions, I hope, will be very clear and very simple and straightforward. And whether you're a single store operator or a multi-store, we think that these will scale. And of course, we don't have to think, we know, because we operate with so many different stores in so many markets, with so many different formats. We can track and see when they implement some of these techniques, what actually happens in their sales. We can use that as a best practice in order to suggest perhaps you should copy this in order to grow your own penetration. That's just the show flow today. Whether you're in IGA, whether you're an independent, whether you're a supplier, it doesn't matter to us. We're here to help everyone in the audience figure out a way to take advantage of something that apparently the shopper wants increasingly more and more. And want more and more they do. So it'd be easy to pull articles, trade journal articles, business journal articles about the transformation of branding in the grocery industry. Private label is no longer a low discount option in low quality product for only the most financially disadvantaged consumer. Private label is a real and a legitimate contender for both shelf space and for the share of stomach for shoppers across all age demographic. As retailers became more expert at improving both the quality and the breadth of their selection of private label, and as that quality moved up from value propositions which were based only on price to when those value propositions are based on price and quality and features and increasingly differentiation, shoppers have become increasingly aware that private label is a legitimate and a credible substitute for name brands that they may have grown up with for their entire lives. As shoppers became more educated and as they become more interested in it, their appetite, and that pun is intended, their appetite for exploration in private label continues to grow, and we'll show you that data as we go along. You know, not only is the industry growing, and it's growing significantly, expected to reach $462 billion. That's a 6% annual growth. Not a lot of parts of our business that are growing quite that fast. There's a lot of reasons. As you see numbers through this presentation, understand that the definition of what is and not a private label can vary radically between how retailers report or how analysts look. Are your bakery items in or out? Are things that you make inside your store cut or create? Are they a part of your numbers or not? Does this include HBC numbers or not? Wherever possible, we've tried to normalize this. So we're talking about as common a set of data as possible, knowing with a giant asterisk that the way retailers often report can be radically different in their numbers. What's interesting about this is there's a couple stats on here. So 58% of shoppers believe that private label brands have more value. Okay, that makes sense. If you've ever tried one and you came back and said that was a pretty good deal and it was 20 cents less or $1 less, that would suggest that it's for. The more interesting one to me is consumers are now considering private labels, so 67%. It's almost, well, that's a huge percentage of our shoppers because of what happened with inflation. Now say they're more open to considering private label than ever before. Not only has private label growth outstripped the industry, and it's outstripped branded growth, but it looks like the momentum will continue because of inflation and other financial pressures. Shoppers are looking at the business saying, I would be dumb not to consider an alternate. Even the products that I love, I'm willing and open to make those considerations. And then a third of the shoppers say they've already made up their mind, they're planning to switch when they find an equitable substitute. If you work for a manufacturer, you would have to take these numbers very, very seriously. There was a time in America where we believed that brand and brand alone was a device that you could use in order to insulate shoppers from experimentation. If I can form a relationship with you on Coke versus Pepsi, no matter what Pepsi does, that brand relationship will trump everything else. Shoppers today have made a decision that perhaps brand allegiance may not be in their ruthless self-interest. And that's a change, it's a mindset change in shoppers. If you look at private label brand dollar growth, it continues to outstrip national brands. You can see that here. You'll see a couple of other versions of this data. This comes from Nielsen as we go forward. And if you kind of think about the trends, not only was this true over the last 24 months or 36 months, but it's been true over the last decade. We've seen this acceleration, this widening acceleration between national and private label. So it's interesting, if you actually break it down a little bit farther and you look at what's going on in private label versus total AOC, you can see private labels up, national brands are down. National brands are down probably in a more exaggerated fashion recently, just purely because of inflation. And the shoppers are forced, many low-income shoppers, they don't even have a choice. They're forced to step down into private label because they can no longer afford the same basket that they did back before COVID. With grocery prices being up almost 36% for the average American versus the same basket of items that they bought in 2019, that's a rational choice, but in some instances it's a forced choice. They become private label shoppers by consequence. Right? The other interesting thing, though, is not all of national brand is down, and there's a category of national brand business. You can see it there. Now, this green button doesn't show up very well on the screen. There's one part of national brands that's up and up significantly, over 4%. That's anything that is wrapped with better for you. So low calorie beer, low calorie products, center store, anything with protein on it, anything that's gluten-free, anything that has a halo of better for you is seeing radical acceleration in sales in national brands, even over private label. There's a couple conclusions that you could reach from this. The first one is that national brands have been have put more forethought in the development of better for you products than private label. And I think that would be true. If you look at the total number of new SKUs that have been released recently, that Nielsen would classify as better for you, 80% of them are in national brands versus private label. The flip side of that, though, is that as retailers developing their own private label program, or if we're in partnership with companies like Topco or IGA that have national private labels, the message there is there's even more upside for private label as we adjust our assortments and take advantage of this growing health trend. I think this is my last one here, or are you doing this one?
Have at it.
Okay. Man, we are well practiced today, let me tell you. So this is just another way of looking at it. This is the total store share, and you can see this share of private label outstripping the growth inside of retail stores, both on a dollar and a unit basis. For a long time, that was not necessarily true. This is the recent trend. Something happened during COVID with supply chain disruption that in some instances caused these numbers to get a little wonky. But the long-term trend, if you were to take this back and you look at it over the long term, we're in a consistent model in which the shopper is more apt to consider and embrace private label than national brands, or to say it another way, the brand halo that used to be so strong continues to weaken. Now, if you break that out and you say how is private label behaving by retail channel, you get all sorts of very, very interesting set of new data. So obviously, if you're in the United States, you know about Aldi and Lidl, and there are other retail formats out there that have a dedication to private label over and above national brands, where they favor their own private label, and it is their private label strategy. And obviously those with 80 to 90% private label penetration, that's not a surprise to anyone in the room. What should be interesting to everyone is the penetration by category. So look at mass there with 31% of their products now sold under a private label of some kind. That's almost a third of mass merchant strategy in and around private label. It is a massive profit accelerator in the mass channel, and one that obviously the grocery industry is lagging on, despite the fact that private label really kind of started with the grocery industry. Other thing that's really disappointing to see there is the spread between national retailers and regional. So regional could be a Food Lion, and it could be a Winn-Dixie. Or regional could be some of the IGA chains like a Houchens with hundreds of stores that are concentrated in a geographic area. Those regional retailers are lagging. 28% penetration for the national grocers, only 17% for regional. If you're a regional retailer in this year, what that tells you is there's a lot of runway there to grow your private label program. It also suggests we should be paying very close attention to what the national retailers are doing, whatever the tactics that they're using in order to grow private label. We should pay attention to that. We're going to talk about some of those tactics here in just a minute.
Yep.
And then finally, the most disappointing thing of all is for the independents. This is the National Grocers Association. We are made up of family-owned regional retailers. 1 store, 10 stores, 50 stores, 400 stores, it doesn't matter. We're independents, and as a class, we lag. 10% private label penetration makes us worst in class in terms of private label growth. Now, there are independents that are dramatically higher than that, and there are some that are even lower. That's an aggregated number. But for the point of this speech today and the tactics that we're going to talk about as we go forward, if you say other retail channels are having success in private label, which is putting real profits to their bottom line, and if you in the same sentence you say, I'm disappointed with the trajectory of my store, I'm not making the kind of money I would like to be making, one of the big observations here would be, how do I move from 10 to 17 to 28? And we'll show you the numbers if you were to increase your private label percentage, what that means in terms of total net contribution at the very tail end of the presentation. We'll do the math for you. So Tom, that's national. How does it break out by retailer?
So retail, by breaking it out by retailers, you see you got Aldi, Trader Joe's all the way to the left there. And then your regional guys, your national guys and your regional guys are also in here. So you got your Kroger sitting up there at 28%, Meijer, Wakefern, Dollar General, you know, they're all significantly outperforming where we are on an aggregate today. But a lot of these folks that are here have major resources dedicated to driving their private brand business. They either use an in-house broker, they use consultants, or they may be dedicating significant resources to build their own private brands team because that's where they see the benefit. Private brand's going to bring your people, their consumers back to your store because that's where they can buy your product. You have a good quality and value is important. You know, obviously the gross margin differences are very important to them. They take it right to the bottom line. You know, your average gross margin on a private brand item may be 35%, whereas your national brand's coming in around 28%. So aggregate that, especially with these big guys, they're bringing a lot of money to the bottom line.
So Tom, you mentioned they're using an outside broker. You're talking about a company like you used to work for, like a Damon, right?
Like a Damon.
Talk about how Damon works with them. They actually embed resources inside the retailer?
So Damon, I can use my example. When I was with Kroger, I was with them for 10 years. We had 210 people dedicated to nothing but Kroger corporate brands across the country. So we were in every KMA, 18 KMAs, and we would do anything.
What's a KMA?
Kroger marketing area, sorry. We would do anything from we would start with sourcing, working with our category management team. Who's the right suppliers? What are the right items? We would help them with category analysis. We would go then continue on through package design, marketing, merchandising out to store level. So we were a one-stop shop, and we worked with them for many, many years. And Wegmans is another retailer where we did that with. I'm surprised that they didn't show up on this chart, but they're a significant player.
There just wasn't space on the chart. That's why.
There was, but they're the kind of guys, private brands historically has been fast followers. See what a brand's doing, you see making sense, let's knock it off. Some of these regional guys, and Kroger, they're out there on the forefront of these things. They're seeing the trends coming, and they're actually getting out in front of some of these items prior to even a brand that recognizing it.
So it's interesting on this chart. So there are non-food retailers. The blue font may not be visible at the back of the room. I don't know what's going on with this projector, but Home Depot is on there. I spent almost 13 years with Home Depot. At the time I first started, private label was about a 3% penetration for the business. I remember a fateful meeting when we had some new leadership come into the company, and they showed us the profit targets that we had to hit going forward. And they were much greater than we would have forecast, traditionally. So when GE leadership comes into a retailer, expect that there's going to be a math assignment coming, right? But at the end of that, the only way we could get there, the only way we could generate the kind of profit expansion as a public company that they thought that the stock market demanded was by to radically increase our private label percentage. And the target at the time was 15%, to go from 3 to 15%. If you were to go inside a Home Depot today and you were to look at Ryobi or Rigid or Hampton Bay, some of these brands have become multi-billion-dollar brands. They've become number one in their category and category leaders. They all started out with this question: how do I radically improve the bottom line of my company? What would I need in order to close the gap between where I am and where I'm going? And that's really the interesting conversation for us today. And we've got a really cool AI-generated image because we didn't have enough of those in previous presentations for you. But the real issue is, so if the industry is somewhere in the 20s, if some of the even average regional retailers are in the high teens, and we as a channel are in the low double digits, what are the steps that we need to do in order to move from where we are to where we could be? And then finally, we'll show you if you did that, what would that mean economically? We've come up with 5 groupings here of stuff that we're going to talk about that are going to be the tactics that we would suggest that any retailer could embrace. So we're not going to go out here and talk to you about AI, generative software tools. We're not going to talk about massive line reinventions or hiring 200 brokers, but tactics that we think that any retailer of any size could implement, and that you could do so in a very quick format, so you could put some of these programs in place and track the results almost immediately. So hopefully you'll find these to be very pragmatic. Tom, you want to do the first one on assortment?
So the assortment, we need to boost your assortment. So you start off by maybe looking at different categories, high volume categories where you might not even have a presence within that in that particular category. Meat, seafood, wherever it happens to be. And then take that down to the item level. So what are the items that we need? Where are the items voids within those categories where we could have a presence? And you want to look at some of our retailers have multiple different brands. They may have IGA brand, they may have Food Club, they may have Everyday Essentials. All depends on the wholesaler that they're using. Obviously, I'm partial to IGA brand, but I understand that that's not practical for everybody. So it's important, though, that we can look at that and make sure that whatever your brand is, you can execute on some of these things. We're here just to help our retailers in general.
Tom, you've got look at multiple brand strategies up on this slide. What does that mean?
Well, that's the Food Club, that's the Everyday Essentials, IGA, all those different brands that might be out there. Those are the different ones that we're gonna work with our retailers on and help them build their private label program in general, regardless of whether it's an IGA brand or not.
So I guess a practical example of that might be, we have retailers that have the wholesaler brand available to them. They have IGA private label. Mm-hmm. This would be common. Piggly Wiggly might have the same thing where you have multiple choices to it. And they will look at the products and they will price them differently on the shelf so that they position one as a premium product, so you may be able to get another nickel out of the IGA brand over the wholesaler label in a way that you might be surprising to you, and we've seen that happen. We've actually seen, like our retailer in Puerto Rico uses the IGA private label as a premium product.
They do.
On the shelf, as opposed to necessarily walking in presuming that it's only going to be entry-level price point. if you were going to sit down, if you were going to come into this business brand new, and if I hired you at Damon, one of the first things you would have done was written a brand strategy.
100%.
Right? And that's really interesting. So how many independents have had, recently, have sat down and write a brand strategy. My strategy for the wholesaler brand is X. My strategy for this local brand is Y. My strategy for an IGA or Piggly Wiggly or whatever else is available. If you can't execute a strategy if it's not on paper, and you can't share a strategy unless you've articulated it itself. And so it's just a single bullet on there, but it may be one of the most important first steps.
One part of that strategy could be, there's certain categories there where you may not have to have a brand. Flour, sugar, maybe some spices, things like that, where you may have to have a representative size in the branded item, but the rest of it, the bulk of the business can be done by your private brand. And that's where we kind of call that 100% solution for a particular category.
So that one I know scares a lot of independent retailers. They look at it and they go, I've got to have the national brand, and I've got to have McCormick, and I've got to have this other generic spice in here. I can't let go of this because if I do that, I'm going to lose some shoppers.
Well, the theory behind having your national brand and your private label, right? So your national brand is there to kind of bring people into the stores of ads and things like that. 75% of the decisions are made at the shelf, though. So that's why you want to be positioned to the right of the national brand, provide about a 15% savings to that national brand, and at that point is where you get them to switch. And that's kind of the one main philosophy behind private brands.
So in a world of choice proliferation, one of the things we learned in COVID, when we couldn't get everything we wanted, is maybe we didn't need everything that we thought we wanted, right?
There's a big debate. What is the idea? What is assortment? You know what I mean?
So Tom, I know we have retailers that have gone in and they have gone to a single selection in categories that they believe are not going to be as brand
Loyal.
Thank you. They won't have the same brand loyalty as perhaps other categories. So no one's going to go in and kick Pepsi out and only have Coke or vice versa. Well,
Right.
Brad would suggest our Coca-Cola rep would like us to do that, but they're probably not going to do that. But when you look at some of these commodity categories, there may be some where you literally could walk in and drop the national brand completely, and the shopper not only would never notice, but would probably not care. Tom, is IGA able to identify some of those brand agnostic SKUs and share that in some easy way?
Yeah, we'd have to go look at their categories, but they're very consistent throughout the marketplace. So these are ones that are always ripe for the picking. But you also probably want to have a representative size of that brand, some size of a national brand.
I don't know. I'd kick some of them out.
Because you may have somebody come in and they're really looking for C&H sugar, So maybe you have a 2-pound or whatever of that. But for the bulk of the business can be done with your own brand.
And Tom, you were talking about pricing and pricing going forward. Like how should private labels be priced today relative to the national brand, and are there any insights how that's changing?
Generally speaking, you're 15% lower than your national brand target. When you're going to be doing when your brand comes on sale, there's a shielding strategy where you would, lower your national brand or your private brand price just a few cents, maybe a nickel under where your branded item is being promoted at. The theory on that is, you're already taking a hit on the national brand margin because you're dropping your retail. If you bring your private label price down just under that, whereas your branded margin may have gone from, 25 to 20%. Whereas if you bring your private brand margin item down just under that retail price for the brand, your margin on your private brand may go from 35% to 30%. Now you're still making more pennies on your private brand, and customers, the branded item that's there if they want to shop for it, or they have an option again to take the private brand. You make more money putting it in your pocket.
So I see this over and over. We'll go out and we'll see the ad items, the weekly ad items, load up it for the retailer. And you go stand on the shelf and you look at it and you go, the national brand on sale looks cheaper than the private label. And suddenly now it makes no sense. The assortment feels irrational. And you're saying, well, just take the private label down a couple of pennies and you'll still sell more and you'll end up making more total pennies.
Right.
If you do that, because you're basically, it's not just in that single transaction, but you're putting a seed in the shopper's mind that it may not be the value that it really is.
100%.
Yeah. All right, so this chart's really interesting. So if you pay attention to it, over time, the question is, what is the disparity between the price of the national brand and the private label? And that gap is widening. So just a few years ago, we were looking at about a 44-cent gap on average across all of the price points. Today, that number is 51. That tells you that leaders in the private label space are getting more aggressive on their price points, possibly because their scale is growing and they're able to extract more cost of goods, or probably because they're being more predatory in the way they're pricing it. Whatever formula that retailers have had, whatever your planogram formulas or the rest, go back and take a look at those and ask a question. Do I need 35 points? What if it was 32 or what if it was 29? And if I were to make those changes, what kind of acceleration could I have in total dollar volume contribution? The national retailers are doing this math, and they're discovering that being more aggressive on those entry-level price points is earning them both more unit and share growth relative to the brand. It's creating brand loyalty, and it's building their business in the long term. And they're making a rational choice, aggressive now in order to build up share later.
One thing, John, I've heard that retailers were talking about that we want to be careful with our national brand or with our private brand because we don't want to upset the national brand, and they're going to come back at us with they're going to pull deal money from us. The stronger, and I've seen this across multiple retailers, multiple categories for years, the stronger your private brand is, the more money your national brands bring to you, because they have to buy that market share back. So it's funny, when you have a weak program, you don't get the national brand doesn't come to the party as much. With a strong program, they do.
So we all want to be strong. We
all want to be
clout.
strong.
We want to be able to negotiate with Coca-Cola on our next supply contract, so we want to be able to do that. And the best way to do it is to grow.
Yes.
Right. So we put this slide. I wanted to talk about the variances by class and subclass. Private label penetration is different, across our store, and so the average number can be misleading. Private label penetration in the United States in alcohol is exceedingly low. It's less than 1%. However, private label penetration growth rates in alcohol are growing faster than a lot of other categories, and I would not be surprised to see private label penetration in alcohol double or even triple here over the next few years as retailers become more expert at applying the learnings in center store over on that category. But you look at some of these classes like bakery, and you scratch your head and go, well, what is private label bakery? Well, private label bakery may be contract baking or products that they're having brought in, and maybe captured brands where they've done an exclusive relationship with a local bakery or a local supplier, and it comes in under their own label, or maybe what they're making in the store, and we're going to talk about that as we go along. And of course, the relative growth and change of these is very, very different. We'll make these slides available to anyone who wants them. This is all industry available data, and it's really interesting to take a look at it. But if I were a retailer, I'd be sitting down with my category captain, and I'd be looking at the performance of my store relative to these growths, and I'd say, okay, where are we going to start to grow my private label penetration? Hey, let's start with the categories that are growing the fastest. Let's just start there and see if we can get some victory, and we'll work our way down it. Because that tells you that momentum, built-in momentum, is consumer-driven. I'll do this one. So, Tom, or you can jump. We can do it together. But one of the things we were talking about is what tactics work. You know what? This is going to sound so stupid, but when you invite people to a party and you send an invitation, they tend to show up. And the question is, when is the last time we've sent invitations out for our private label brand? Private label programs in grocery stores end up being a part of our operations. They get set, they get put together, because there aren't trade funds or other promotions coming against them the same way you see with national brands. They tend to get way less ad space. It's almost by default. You have to kind of remember, let's put the private label in there, let's put it in the ad, because our ad process is generated in order to consume trade funds at the highest possible rate. You often go back and look at your ads and go, does my ad reflect a strategy designed around growing my total private label percentage. The other part of why we don't have as much new news in private label in the way we promote or how we go to marketplace is because we don't have to pay as close attention to it. We're not in sync with national promotions. There's not sweepstakes happening on it. There's no sports sponsorship taking place. All the excitement and the new news that great brands, national brands, their marketing dollars do to generate in the stores, we tend to do almost none of that. So what happens when you do? What happens when you do start using the same tactics that national brands do and you just apply them to your local brand? So this is basic stuff like doing demos and sampling. We were walking in talking about an old tactic that we probably haven't done in a long time that we probably should. This is easy data to get. There are companies out there, Damon does it as well. A lot of companies will come in and for a very expensive fee, they will come in and do sampling in your store. Pick up the phone and call them. What happens when I do sampling? What happens to my sales comps in the day that the sampling takes place? And more important, how does it change the rate of sale of the category over time? Sampling is expensive, it requires labor. We got out of a lot of sampling during COVID because of safety and other kinds of issues, and the tactic has not come back in spades. Put the product in the shopper's hand or put it in their mouth. The quality of our product today, no matter which brand you're buying, is better than it has ever been before, and you will do conversions. We're going to talk about that in just a second here. Trial promotions, this is an interesting idea. So we talk about promotions in this industry as something's on sale. 30 cents off, $1 off, buy one, get one free. What's your strategy for the promotion? When I put something on sale, what do I expect to happen? Sell more units. Interesting. I want to create trial on something that's important to me, that generates profit dollars or gives me exclusivity in my market. That's a much more mature strategy. If you were going to take any note out of this presentation, what is my strategy inside of my store to generate trial for shoppers who should be buying my private label and are not? Demo, so you can build a whole bunch of tactics under trial. Trial is buy the national brand, get half my private label for free. It is demos, it is trial coupons, it is an opportunity to become a part of an advisory club. They come in and do samples and then do social media reports back. Your creativity will go crazy. When we start thinking of our ads and our promotion strategy as just on sale, but in service of an overarching strategy to get my private label percentage from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. There's a couple of others on here is under the incentive side, right? Weekly strategies. You're building your ad, you're filling it up with all the trade promotions that we've got in, we're building our normal strategy. We know how to do this, we've done this for decades. When that work is done and overrun, what's my also calendar for what we're doing on private label? How many end caps is it getting? How many ad units did it get? How many unique new signs did we put up in the store as a consequence of it? And then finally, I want to talk about loyalty and rewards. So shoppers today are more economically compressed than ever. Many of our stores serve lower income neighborhoods, which means shoppers need savings more than ever. And the best way to change behavior is to reward for someone for doing what you want them to do. There's lots of ways we can reward people. If you have a formal reward program, giving extra points or extra dollars for spending your money on private label is a proven tactic. But there's other ways to do rewards as well. And one of those is price bundling or unit blocks, where you give them incentives for buying more. And then the other objective, and this is a really cool one, is leveraging your social media to let influencers, these are your own shoppers, talk about what happened when they switched. Let customers that already love you, who are private label buyers, do a testimonial about why they will never go back, or how pleased they are with the quality or surprised they are with the experience when they went foreign. Influencer marketing is one of the most effective that we see. It's cheap, it's easy, it's using media you own. It's something that almost any retailer can do. You want to do the end cap?
So end cap strategy or general merchandising strategy, we all have our end caps. A lot of the brands, they spend money for these end caps, right? There's no reason, generally speaking, that you can't have a couple branded items on there and tie in a private brand item. You want to have a s'mores end, you got your Hershey chocolate, you got your Keebler graham crackers, put your private brand marshmallows on there. Cross merchandise your vanilla wafers, private brand Nilla wafers over with the bananas and things like that. It makes everybody real happy, trust me. So we would develop these, what we would call barges. So holiday times, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever, we would have thematic barges just laid out create a couple pallets, and you just merchandise off that. Product just flies out of the store.
This is a barge here. This is
that one down here is
yeah.
a barge. Yeah. And
Not
then
the sexiest of names, is it?
Yeah. Well, it was from Wisconsin, so
Okay.
no offense, but I used to live there. Make it a destination. You have people coming in looking for your products. And again, one rule of thumb here is if you want your penetration to go from 15% to 20%, are you able to dedicate 20% of the merchandising space to your private brand?
So Tom, there's a really cool picture on this. This is an IGA program. Anybody could copy this, whether you're an IGA or not, and it's a family meals made easy. And on this end cap, there's a QR code for the recipe. All the ingredients for the recipe are on it. There's some national branded products on there from our friends at Coca-Cola, but there's also private label. You probably can't see, but there's private label product. What's fascinating about the recipe, it's inviting someone to make this meal. I don't even remember what this one was, but the recipe information also tells you the amount of calories and the amount of sodium, comparing it to that same recipe used at a national restaurant. And it shows the comparison of the cost per serving. So it's a third the cost per serving. I actually talked about this from main stage. That's actually what the in-cap strategy looks like. So the shopper can come in, they can scan it, they're learning something, it's educating them on how to be healthier, how to save money, and of course part of the value proposition is the use of private label. So private label just becomes a de facto part of the recipe. Incredibly effective, 20-30% comps when retailers do this. You can follow the IGA program, you can make your own. It's really easy to do. What we do works, and embedding private label into the recipe is a de facto endorsement of the program. One of the things on one of the previous slides is making sure you tell people why to buy. Tom and I were talking about this today. Most of the time you go out to the store, and our strategy on private label merchandising is to stick it on the shelf next to the national brand and off you go. Well, we have a lot of other marketing tools in the aisle, and people won't buy something unless you tell them why. Sales associate can't be there all the time. You can't do demos every single day of the week, but what you can do is put up reasons or something inside the store. So this is very, very basic signage. It's a simple aisle block that says a smarter choice. It's got a picture of our product on it. You put the aisle blade up, sales go up about 200 basis points. Piece of plastic clipped to the aisle and you get a 2% increase. That's a really pretty interesting idea. That's something anyone can do. At IGA, we chose to back up our private label with a double money back guarantee. Now the quality in the box of the can, how many people send their product back for reward? Nothing, right?
I've been here 7 months. I haven't had it.
It's exceedingly rare that someone's going to be disappointed. And this is true for our line, and all the quality in private label today is excellent. Excellent. It's exceedingly unusual. But because we talk about a double money back tea, basically it's a trust promise. So we're telling shoppers with this signage, you can trust IGA because we're going to stand behind it, knowing that the economic cost to us is going to be de minimis. We'll never, it's exceedingly rare. And the flip side of it, it gives us a reason to talk about our private label in the aisle in a way that a lot of classic generic private labels don't. Again, every time you give someone a reason to buy, they will tend to do it. It's really, literally, it's a sticker on the shelf and the rest of it.
And these sign kits are available to all of our retailers, right?
All IGAs can download these signs kits.
Yeah.
You can go get them. Everything you see here, all this, and there's, and it's really interesting. Like one on this is there's health information, or it's a good source of protein, or some of these things. These are stickers, aisle wobblers, little things. There's a cost to this, right? You have to sit down with your advertising agency, and you have to tell them, these are the messages I want to tell about my private label. And then you have to build the kit. And then you have to instruct your stores to actually take the effort to go put the sticker or the aisle blade of the thing up. But the good news about it is you can put the sticker or the aisle blade up, and then you can measure your comp sales week over week. And what you'll find is that the shopper's already in the aisle, they're moving at speed, they're looking for information to feel smarter and give them just one little push over the edge. And it could be the difference between a 1% comp and a 4. And this is absolutely, completely true, and also in the products that you make in store as well. IGA makes all of this available. You can go onto the IGA website and see all of this, right? I think it's all available. Anyone can see what's out there. If you're a non-IGA retailer, go look at what we're doing and just copy it and just use it. You might even call Ashley and she might even send you a digital file. If you're an IGA retailer, you don't like the colors, you want to say something different, we'll probably make the sign for you. Our objective isn't to convert people to IGA, it's to help independents make sure that we continue to thrive and grow. And the only way we're going to survive is by using tactics that allow us to make our businesses increasingly more resilient. Private label is a resiliency super weapon. And the tactics that get these kinds of lifts are something that almost any retailer could do.
And you inherently have an advantage over the chains. You know, you're in the fabric of their community, right? You're there. You know the people coming in. They know you. They trust you. That's something that the chains really are not going to be able to compete with. I think we heard that last night.
This last one, I talked about this actually from Main Stage as well. It's like what we make is a private label brand. And I think a lot of the conversation about how do you grow starts with what's the message that I want for the products that I own. I go into stores and I see people making their own sausage and they're incredible, crazy flavors. I go in another area and they're making donuts the size of my head. And people stand up in line to get them in the morning because they're amazing. And then the next guy, the guy's doing custom blends of meat for meatloaf with unique flavors. And then at the next store, they're doing bundle packages where they're putting vegetables and meat together to make it easy to go forward. Or I go into the deli and I see rows of all the deli salads and I go, where did the recipe come from? And they go, well, that was my grandmother's recipe from before. And I go, well, how would I know? We as independents have a very humble culture. We don't ring our bell and bang the drum all the time. We just do what we do and we serve people and we leave value on the table. If it's your grandmother's recipe for the potato salad and the thing, imagine if you were a restaurant and what you would say. My grandmother's recipe, using only the freshest possible ingredients, recipe handed down forever. So you would romance that product. And you would sell it and you would brand it in a way that people would remember and recall. Go through your store, walk and look at all the items that you created. Say, is just the sticker that prints out from your signage system enough? Or is there an opportunity to add messaging and branding to that in a way that tells shoppers that it's unique to you, that it's better for you, and it's something that you stand behind because you put your name or your brand on it. And watch what happens to sales. I do this challenge all the time. Got a little sign sticker that goes down on the potato salad that says, made fresh today. Or made by hand today. Or made by Lisa. Sometimes you can write, we got some that we can put, Lisa made this at 8 o'clock, whatever you do. Put it in the potato salad, watch what happens. I bet you sell another half a tray before the lunch crowd is done. And it happens over and over and over again. And of course, these are things that we can do today. Finally, the direct comparison against other options are in the marketplace. So shoppers do not know that the potato salad that you see over at Kroger came in a bag and was dumped out and just put in a metal tray. They have no idea. They can't tell the difference. If you are making things, if you're creating things, my advice to you is call the evil agents out. Unlike national chains that freeze their meat, we cut fresh every day. Unlike national chains that bring their soup in a plastic bag and dump it in a thing, we make this every single day. Write that phrase down. Unlike national chains, who do this evil thing, we do this great thing. And then wander around your store looking for all the opportunities to tell that message. And if you don't tell it in store, you can tell it on social media, you can tell it in your ad. The opportunity to tell our private label story here is a path towards not only incremental profitability, but also incremental loyalty. Because what happens is shoppers want to know they're buying something unique and fun. If you let them know about it, they'll tell their neighbors, they'll tell their
Even
friends.
create some signature flavors. Only available here. Have some fun with it. Run a contest in your store. Have some of your associates. What are your favorite recipes? Bring them in. Try them out. See how they do.
So now we're going to talk about health focus, and I think you're going to bring us home with some really cool stuff here. So, yeah, I talked about this from Main Stage. All shoppers, regardless of age and demographic, are obsessed with health. And when shoppers go on a diet or when they go on some sort of journey, people who have become interested in their health come visit our stores more often. They spend more when they come, and the margin per basket is higher. So knowing that, if you want to grow our total sales, being more important or more credible to people who are on a health journey is a way to grow sales in the store. And younger shoppers, they're increasingly looking for different things. So all shoppers are out there trying to figure out how do they make decisions on value, how do they fit private label into their strategy for blunting inflation. But it's really interesting when you put it through the lens. And okay, I know you're laughing at me on these images. I got all kinds of flack because I blame ChatGPT. You put it in and say, I need some people in a store, and when it comes back, they look like, I don't know, something from a teen drama or something. I don't know why it always does this. I take no responsibility for the image. All right, but it's really interesting when you put this health through the lens of younger shoppers, and who does not want the next generation shoppers in your store. And if you put it through the lens, there's 3 things here to learn. And we've been teasing each other on this one. So the first
What's
one
the first one, John?
Brand promiscuity. You'll love this phrase. So what it means is a shopper that comes in that's less likely to care about switching from one brand to another. Never have we seen a generation of shoppers that walk into the store not only not really caring about the brands that they bought before, but actively pursuing new and exciting things to try. They actually want to walk in and learn something new. And this idea that you can take advantage of an existing trend and use it. But then the last one is they want cool options even on their budget, and they're just health obsessed. Where if you're going to take your private label and you're going to look at what we have, a national brand strategy where we're kind of the same as the rest but cheaper, and you put it up against this list, that's not good enough. As good as the national brand, but cheaper isn't good enough. What you would want is something that meets increasing differentiated answers to their journey. Not just cheaper, but also better for you. And manufactured in some cool new way that's cleaner or better or better for the environment. And of course, something that's honest and straightforward in a way you feel good about feeding your family. So what are we doing about that?
Well, John, I'm glad you asked. So anyway, we've worked long and hard on coming up with a new brand and new line of products. That's Italy. We just kind of, some of you folks, I recognize you were at the dinner last night and you actually had a chance to try some of it. But our own brand strategy here for this new brand is clean label, non-GMO products, authentic. We want them all to have, other attributes if we can get increased protein, have a more health-focused, or anything unique flavors. So we're trying to create something a little bit different than what you may have seen in our legacy brand. So it gives you you as a retailer an opportunity to provide high-quality products to your consumers, keeps your customers in your store. If they don't find these in your store, they're going to go to your competition. And I've talked to many retailers about that. That's why they're so excited about this coming online here. It gives you growth in categories where you may not have had it. Premium categories. And again, the millennials and the Gen Zs are looking for elevated food options, but they still would like to have it at a value.
So Tom, I know we've been working on this program, and you're using our global connections to bring global sourcing in with a differentiated product that's authentic. But I want to talk a little bit about pricing. So when we went down this path, you can go to PLMA and you can walk to a manufacturer and they'll build anything you want.
Sure.
Right. And so, so we had this grid and we had all the pasta sauces that are on the market, or all the pastas or all the olive oils, and we had them all priced out. And you've got the low end, and you've got a bunch of brands that kind of cluster on top of the middle, and usually there's one or two that are at the far right in terms of index of quality and price. So the idea is you can pay more if you want better quality. What did you do with this line?
With this line, what we're doing is we're kind of tucking it. There's different tiers of products. So we're going to be developing a product that's along the lines of maybe a Barilla pasta. It would be a Teflon cut, but our since it's coming in from Italy, so it's non-GMO. Everything over there is non-GMO, and the durum semolina that we're using is coming from Italy. Whereas if you look at Barilla, it's a mix of domestic flour and things like that. So it's more of a premium item to that brand, but we're going to be retailing it about 10-15% lower.
So that's really a decision we made, right? So you can go to PLMA and you can have someone make anything that you want, and you can be as frou-frou or as basic as and If you order container load, they'll make it for you. We've been very purposeful trying to create differentiated experiences that fit into a price point that not only would work with the majority of retailers, but also doesn't force the shopper, this is the key, doesn't force the shopper to have to pay a massive premium for the quality that they want. I think that's a really cool strategy. So we're showing you an IGA case study here as to how we're approaching this. We think this could work for anyone, but that phrase, right? Shopper wants better quality. How can I create options for them that don't force them to pay more for the quality that they seek? And I'm really excited to see how this comes forward. So got a whole bunch.
So here's a list of the items that we're going to be launching with in the first wave. So I want to call your attention to a bronze cut. Bronze cut is what's unique about that is that it goes through a bronze die, gives more texture to the pasta itself, holds onto the pasta sauce better, more flavor. I mean, so that's what's kind of unique. Our pasta sauces, we're going to spec them around Rao's, although in blind cuttings that we've had, the quality surpasses Rao's. Our pestos, we'll have some olive oils and balsamic vinegars. We'll have a line of cured meats, and we'll be making the retailer will be making some pretty good margin on that, 28 to 40%, at a savings to if there is a like national brand, will be tucked underneath that. So quality, value for your consumers, which is what everybody's kind of looking for. A little healthier, better for you. Even though it's pasta, it's still non-GMO. And then next year, we've kind of identified with a couple of our retailer partners, what are some of the other items that we may end up putting into this line as well. The Hispanic will be the next one that we approach.
I think I think the label looks great, and to the whole team that worked on it, I think the label looks great, and the response from so far has been great. And I know we're doing a lot of consumer testing on it right now, and it's cool that it's an authentic product and it's an import, and we're leveraging our global. I mean, praise brand, but the core of it is the strategy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, good. We good. I'm not the only one that has a technology malfunction, so. But I think at the core of it is the strategy that says, I'm going to work backwards for my shopper. And what I love about what the team has done here is I'm going to work backwards for my shopper. I'm going to listen to what they want. I'm going to go out and try to create that experience without forcing them to pay a massive premium to get the quality that they want. That is not unique to us. You can see it happening at H-E-B. You can see it happening at Meijer. You can see it happening at a lot of big quality retailers out there for our industry. It is a path forward. It is a path forward that is economically viable for all of us. So if we follow just a few of these basic techniques, we can see retailer performance across thousands of stores. What's it mean to the bottom line?
Well, if you can drive 5%, 500 basis points or 5% penetration gain, that generally will translate into about 10% increase on your bottom line. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of different things that you can do to drive your penetration. But at the end of the day, you want to make more money, right? You want to bring people back into your store, right? And you want to provide them with a good experience.
And make 10% more on the bottom line. I'll take that any day.
10%'s nice.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you for doing this presentation with me. It was great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.